Shalom, shalom, everybody. This Prophets of Awakening. This is our Thursday night class. It's the 3rd of September, 2020, and we're gonna do that a moment of silence in reference to all that the Lord of Hosts is doing in the earth to bring about His people's deliverance, Israel deliverance, and then we're gonna go into a prayer and then do a little current events. Okay. O Lord, we pray to the Lord our God. We make our confession, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping covenant and mercy to them that love thee and to them that keep thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us the fusion of faith as it is this day, to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven us, because of our trespass, that we have trespassed against thee. As it is written in the laws of Moses, all this evil has come upon us in the land of our captivity, here in the Americas, Caribbean, Great Britain, and Africa. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from the city of Jerusalem and thy people and thy holy mountain. O Lord, hear this prayer, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary and thy people, and for thy sake. O Lord, open thine eyes and incline thine ears to hear and to behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake, O my Lord, for thy people and your land need you very desperately at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay. So with that being said, anybody got any current events, something they want to bring out? Okay. What's up, Gladys? Yeah, Zaire. Your mic is muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't have anything.
Okay. So how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I had a root canal done earlier, so I'm gonna be kind of quiet because
Okay.
my mouth feels like I got a big lip.
Okay. 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 Well, I had some. I was just wanting to talk about. You get a chance to watch it. It's Dr. Arcana then pop back on the scene, and she's running for the chairmanship of the AU now. And the name of the video is Wow, Dr. Arcana Shimbora ready to be the AU commission chairman. So now she's running for this position from the same guy that supposedly fired her from being ambassador. She going for his position now. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay. Does anybody else have anything?
And so what does that position mean though? Dr. Arcana taking that position.
What she running for? She put a beat. She said back in, if you remember back like maybe about a year or so ago, about a year ago, they fired her from being an ambassador, saying because of some of the stuff she was saying about France and all that, and about the money that they were stealing from Africa. So the guy that's the chairman now, he was from you know, certain sources were saying that he was the one behind her being fired. So now she's running for his position.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So like yeah, so she'll be pretty much making all the decisions when it's dealing with anything has to do with Africa, because it's more or less like it's like to go through her, and then she take it to the you know, the heads of states of Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, so she have a lot of power. She be swinging a lot of power around.
Right.
Right. So yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting. And I had already said that she was gonna, before it's over with, she's gonna be the chairperson. So
Right.
I'm
You
already
did.
doing. Huh?
No, I said I do remember you saying that. That's why I had just asked that.
Right.
Mm.
Right. So I was gonna do a little. We're doing I'm gonna be playing for the next couple of days. I'll be playing dealing with this video called Yacub and the Making of the White Race, a fact or fiction, or science or fantasy. So to let you know, give you a little brief history for the people that don't know, in Islam, it's been said that the artists they know, they already know that there's a difference in the Caucasian race and all the other races. They know that the Caucasian race is it's like an evasive species. They not, you know, they don't function. They don't operate the same way that we do. They you know, they cut from a different cloth. And so Islamic tradition go way back 1,000 years, say that it's a being, supposedly a being that or giant or whatever you want to call it, but he had a big head, and they called him Yacub, and he was very intelligent, highly intelligent, and he's the one that created the white man. He went to this island in the Aegean Sea. Over when you understand where the Aegean Sea at, is over when you go to Genesis chapter 10. I'm gonna read that right quick so you can begin to see there's no difference. There's no difference in Islam than it is in Christianity. How they tying everything in. All the ideas is coming from the Tanakh, but you just got to be able to be apt enough to just understand, you know, where it's coming from and how to rightly divide it. So if you go to Genesis chapter 10, and they're gonna go into it. This guy that's his name is Dr. Wesley Muhammad. He's a Muslim. He's the one doing bringing forth all the information. He's going to expound on Jacob and all that whole situation, and you just can, you know, you can cipher a lot of it for yourself. But we'll do some Q&A too. But in Genesis chapter 10, it says, 10 says, now these are the generations, 10 and 1. These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. 2, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Midian, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus, the sons of Gomer. We already know all this, but the verse I'm going to tie you into this teaching right here is 5. It said, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after their tongue, after their families in their nation. So another thing you have to understand, when they say Gentiles, it's like the people that go down, the people that live down by the sea. And so when you understand that, you go over to Europe and go what Greece said, you got the Greek islands. It's a whole bunch of islands, like 1,000 islands over there, all around in one area. That's what he's talking about right here. When it said, by these were the isles of the Gentiles. Those are isles over there. That's where Japhet land is at, that was given to him after the flood. So when you understand that, now the story right here that's coming out of Islam saying that this big-head scientist, Yacub, was given, you know, he started tampering with DNA and all that. And this supposedly divine council he had already been prophesied about, just like Cyrus prophesied about. And so they sent him and told him that, being that it was already prophesied that he was going to create this race, they gave him a location to go to that he could do it. So they sent him to this island to these islands, and in these islands is when he created the white man. So you can see the correlation to the Genesis, because it tells you the Gentiles are the people that live in the islands. And then this guy right here, Yacub, was given geographical location, islands, to go and create the white man. And it also corresponds with Genesis chapter 10, telling you about the Gentiles. And another thing about that, before I start the video, is that it's telling you that when you understand who the Gentiles are, the people that go down by the sea. That's what that means. So you say, what are you talking about? The people that live down by the sea. So when you understand that, what do the people do that live down by the sea? They eat catfish and shrimp and all the abominable things that Most High told us don't eat. That in itself right there tell you that we come from a different origin than they did. So what the Most High said for us not to eat, they eat. And then when you come over to America, then that's pretty much the culture in America. And being that we was forced over here, drug over here on slave ships, so we didn't adapt to this society, which originated from over there, because those people came over here and they brought that culture over here. They hang out down by the sea, building harbors and all that stuff, and they eating out. They eating, you know, anything they pull up on a hook, or they can drag a net in there and get, they're gonna eat it. So anyway, we're gonna go into this. It's the whole thing. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to put it out, but I gave you the name of it. Is Yacub, the making of the white man, the making of the white race, : fact or fiction, comma, question mark, science or fantasy, question mark. And it's 5 hours and 52 minutes, but it's packed with all kind of information. And so we're gonna just play maybe an hour of it today, and then we're just gonna chop it up and go all the way through it, because it's gonna bring you about and heighten your understanding and heighten your conversation, just like the Illuminati video did. So we're gonna start it off.
Minister Louis Farrakhan has dedicated his life to spreading the message of freedom, justice, and equality to people all over the world. Log in to NFA Studios and get unlimited access to a vast library of his life's work, plus never released lectures.
I watched it step by step. How long now before
this episode, we're going to take a look at what it took to be built.
Okay.
Now, so just remember, you're going to want to log back on to your Patreon site and then get the link to join us live. Dr. Wesley, how have you been?
I've been excellent. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've been okay. Staying inside all the time is difficult. It's different.
The quarantine blues.
Yeah. But
Well,
and then go ahead.
I've been great because I've been greatly anticipating this conversation today, because for me, this particular conversation is 30 years in the making for me. When I first countered Islam, I was good with what I was hearing, but there was 2 stumbling blocks to me accepting Islam. I did study and I could rationally comprehend and even defend everything I was hearing, but there was two stumbling blocks to my accepting Islam: the mothership and Yacub. Until I was able to reason with the mothership and Yacub, I could not accept Islam as my religion by Allah's grace.
Yeah, so I want to make that plain. So he's saying that he's high up in the Muslim community, and these two things that bothered him before he really got into it was this. What I'm telling you about this guy Yacub, this big head scientist that's supposed to create the white man, and the other one is the UFOs. That it's black folks in the UFO. So those are two things that he was troubled with, and that's pretty much what he's gonna be dealing with in this video.
He blessed me to be able to rationally empirically embrace the mothership, and he blessed me to be able to rationally and empirically embrace the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching of Yacub and making of the double, which is the most mocked aspect of his teaching. So I've been excellent over these last few days in high anticipation of this great conversation today, Sister Janine.
Well, speaking of rationally, the story of Yacub doesn't seem like it's rational. In fact, there are many people who have publicly criticized the story of the Yacub and the making of the white man. I think actually we can play some clips right now to kind of illustrate the point. So it's really interesting, as today we're going to talk about the rationality behind all of this.
Got a little blank spot in there, so we got to get the glitch. This guy Vlad, we got a show. He's talking with DLU, but they had trouble with the sound, but it's gonna come in a minute.
Something about this particular show today is just like obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. But we do appreciate you all bearing with us as they are quickly being resolved right now. And we will be able to get with the program. In the meantime, as we wait so it's not awkward, do you have any questions that you guys want to know? Because I know, for instance, people have been DMing me saying, like, can you ask this, can you ask that? And so definitely want to put that out to all of our audience. We've got a lot of people on our stream today. So if you guys want to start taking some of the questions that can be asked later on, because if you are similar to me, this is a new story for you. And you probably have a lot of questions, or you might be seasoned in the teachings and you have more specific questions that have or have not been answered before.
So we wanted to frame this conversation with remarks from some of the mock makers. I said that of all of the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, none is mocked more than his teaching on the origin of race, the origin of the white race in particular. And we wanted to frame at least the opening of this conversation with two examples of such mock making, if you will, one by Ronald Reagan and one by DJ Black. Now, you said, Sister Janita, that it is hard to rationalize this aspect of the teaching, and I totally get that. This is why this aspect of the teaching, along with the mothership, but this in particular was the very last holdout for me as an atheist, just encountering or working on reconciliation with the God I did. In the beginning stages of trying to reconcile with religion and declaring that I would never surrender my God-given mental faculties to religion again. And if I ever do religion, it would have to be one in which I don't have to separate my soul and my mind, my spirit and my intellect. So in that state, encountering every aspect of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I needed to make rational sense of them. Right. I needed to be intellectually and rationally satisfied with what I'm hearing in order to say, I believe. And Yacub, in the making of the white man, was the last holdout for me, because it did at first seem incredible. And so I was very incredulous. So I totally understand what you're saying, your sentiment. I will say this, though, that most of the mock makers today are just ignorant of the facts. Right. After 30 years of academically studying the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, after putting every aspect of this teaching under the microscope of critical scrutiny, hitting every aspect of this teaching with the fire of investigation, I can say that the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, every bit of it, is not religious dogma. It is a verifiable body of knowledge. The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, starting with what's in this book, this is not a religious dogmatic text. This is a text of verifiable knowledge. Excluded from that is not the history of Yacub and the making of the white man. The making of the white man, the grafting of the white man by a group of black Arabians, led by an exceptionally wise, and so wise he had so many brains, he had a big head. But that too is not fantasy. That's not religious dogma. That's a verifiable piece of knowledge. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely coming with an open mind. I do think there are elements from the story that make sense, especially considering genetic engineering and cloning, right? So we know today people can make a designer baby. You can choose the eye color and the gender of your child. So in terms of isolating genes to create a particular race, in theory and in reality, that makes sense. But then there are certain particulars, I'm just like, well, this is bizarre. Like the detail of the big head, I'm like, how is that even verifiable? Was there a skeleton that was resumed here?
Verifiable, that's cosmetic. right? That whether his head was big or small, that doesn't change the history of the origin of the white race. Right? We like to cite that, but only for cosmetic purposes. And of course, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad cited it, and he said that Yacub was called by his peers big-headed scientists. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us to understand, he mentioned why he was so called. The point was how wise this black man was. That at 4 years old, he entered school. At 6 years old, he had an epiphany and came to knowledge of his mission in life. At 18 years old, he had completed every educational institution in Arabia at the time, during which he spent a lot of time in laboratories under microscopes, examining the genome of the black man and woman. So he was a prodigy. That's the point of dropping out there big-headed scientists. That's totally irrelevant to the historicity of this narrative of the origin of race in the white people. So it's necessary to verify the story, find a skeleton with a gigantic head. You could go on Google right now and find black men with ginormous heads. That's not the point. And we won't get trapped trying to examine the deserts of Arabia for a skeleton with a ginormous head. Right. That was the point of how an intellectual prodigy Mr. Dr. Yacub was.
Well, I think we're ready now to play some of those clips.
Okay. Let's see.
Right, because, part of the thing that Nick said was that white people, because they lack melanin comes compassion. Therefore, they're not as human. They're more animalistic. And, for example, when we look at NOI teachings, they believe that there was a guy named Yacub, who had 59,999 followers. He took them all to an island. He started to weed out the black traits and he killed the dark-skinned babies. And that's it. He created white people on this island. I've had people that he lived to the age of 152. So he had a lot of interesting things about him. And you could believe this, or you could look at Bill Nye, who explains how people that live, near the equator have a certain amount of vitamin D. And, based on where you live, and of course, the equator, the vitamin D levels change. And that's why you have lighter skin versus darker skin based on where you are in the equator. But, but this is science. Of course, Nation of Islam has their own theory of it.
Which is fine, but here's
their theory. Let me just say this. According to the NOI, there was a guy named Big Head Yacub, who was an African, who went to an island with a bunch of Africans and basically crossbred a bunch of them and created this white race and killed off all the black ones and created this evil devil type creature. And he lived to 157 years old and so forth. Now, if you want to believe this, there's no one stopping you from believing.
No one stopping you from Louis Farrakhan subscribed to all these moronic ideas about Yacub and the white devil. He believed in all that stuff. So when Nick Cannon references Louis Farrakhan, this is specifically what he's referencing. He's specifically referencing the Nation of Islam and this concept of Yacub. That's why he's saying white people are less. That's why he's saying we don't have souls. We're deities. This is all the teaching of Farrakhan, Malcolm X, and their premises. This is a crazy made-up theory about the history of the world developed in the 20th century and popularized in the 1960s. It hasn't been around for very long. This isn't like ancient religion that these people believe. This is basically a brand new thing. This is just a cult that these people have been brainwashed to believe in. And so, like I said, I don't blame Nick Cannon for expressing these idiotic ideas. I mean, to some degree, we have to place some responsibility on him for being so naive as to believe it. But these are not his ideas. He's just repeating the insanity that he was taught.
That's crazy. It's interesting because so prior to watching, no, first I watched those and I was like, yeah, this sounds crazy. And then I read pages 103 to I think 134 of Message to the Black Man. And there was a part that just recently there's been an article on CNN circulating about how Black babies are 3 times more likely to die by having a white care provider than other babies of other races. And as we know, in America, Black women, regardless of economic income or education, right? You've got Beyonce, Serena Williams, are likely to also die during childbirth, and Black women are more likely to get cesarean. So there's a part in the book that talks about killing off specifically the Black babies, and for me, I was like, oh, I actually can connect that, if this is true, to what is happening right now. And then I was thinking, like, well, if this is a true story, is that an explanation as to why even in today's day and age, we're seeing so many Black babies and Black mothers die giving childbirth?
Yes, you raise or make a very important connection between the report that was just released of how Black babies die when tended to by white doctors. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Yacub's chief laborers, those who were responsible for executing his plan, for furthering the process of the making of death, his laborers were doctors, nurses, ministers, and cremators. Those hospital officials were the very ones, or hospital personnel, were the very ones responsible for executing the plan to create the white race by killing the dark. And so we find that the hospital today still imbibes the spirit of Yacub's work. That's why the hospital, I have said in discussing the scientific assault on Black America, that the hospital, which was set up to experiment on poor people, primarily poor Black people, that it's a very dangerous place for the Black man and woman. I think it was Sister Dr. Washington who described medical apartheid.
Yeah.
And when you recall the scientific death that the apartheid regime unleashed on Black people, if the medical establishment here in America, if the hospitals can be described as medical apartheid, that appropriately hints at the scientific death that Black patients are met with. And yes, this is a legacy of the work of Yacub. His laborers were doctors and nurses then, and his laborers are doctors and nurses today.
So what are we really here to talk about, Dr. Wesley? Are we here to talk about demons and soulless people, biblical information? What exactly is to this conversation about?
Great question. Quite simply, we want to know who to believe, God, or as Vlad suggests, instead of believing God, we should believe Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye, the science guy, is not my teacher. Bill Nye, the science guy, told Vlad that white people are the result of adapting, black people adapting in cold Europe and losing their melanin because of, to avoid or avert the consequences of vitamin D deficiency. That's Bill Nye, the science guy. I don't believe in Bill Nye, the science guy, because I know he's wrong.
Okay, so we're gonna get some comments on so far. Anybody got any comments? Have you ever heard about Yacub before, or what? You got no comments on what you heard? Okay, nobody have no comments? Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, geez, it's been about 5-6 years ago. I think I saw a video because it was showing the guy with the big head.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I remember that video too.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
Right.
But I don't know if I can believe it.
Right. Yeah, that's the reason I'm going over that, because I dove into it. Because just to see where they was coming from. That's the reason I know about it. And so, like I said, I think this is going to be good information once it all come out, because you're going to see how you can tie it into the now. Whereas they trying to say that the Israelites getting their information from previous civilizations, like from Egypt, but it's not the case. When you divide all this stuff, you see that these people bouncing off of what's been told, what our forefathers received. They just didn't, like I said, they didn't flip the times and the dates and all that all around to make you think that these Israelites and what our forefathers was doing was they were Johnny come latelys, but they wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right. Anybody else got something? Your mic on mute.
Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
For myself, shalom. No, I have never heard of this, but now I want to know more. So I don't been on Amazon looking at books. And I was listening to one of the books on Kindle, which is Book of Yacub, and I was reading where it is saying Yacub is hidden in the Christian Bible under the name Jacob.
Right, exactly.
Oh wow.
Right. But we're gonna write and divide all that today. That's why I'm dealing with this.
Right.
And that's why I keep on saying you have to go back and deal with everything that you think of who you are. Most of us online are 50 years old. So
Yes.
So who constructed your mind and why you believe what you believe? So that's why I'm dealing with all this stuff, because it's laying a serious foundation that once it's been laid, can't nobody come and tear the foundation up.
Right. Just
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Shalom, shalom.
Okay.
Yes. I was listening to it. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So as we were listening to that, I was thinking about the fact that you introduced us to the 12 crucified saviors, and each one of those men had a book and a philosophy, and they get followers to write books to validate what their beliefs are. So Dr. Wesley Muhammad is one of the people in the Nation of Islam who researches what they believe, and he writes literature on it. So
Right.
when I first heard it and they said Yacub, I had to actually see the word to know that that is Jacob. They say Yacub, but it's actually um, their rendition of
Right.
the creation of the races. Right.
Right. And the thing about it is, in the past, understanding that the people that came on the slave ships was Hebrew Israelites, and we people of the Tanakh.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this point, we didn't have no glue or no meat and nothing to hold on to when these type of people came with these type of ideologies, and we
Yes.
sucked right into all of them.
Exactly.
But that's not the case now. The Most High, His knowledge is coming back on the earth.
Yes.
And so when you sitting there with His knowledge, you can look at this stuff and you can place it right where it's supposed to be at and deal with it the way you're supposed to deal with it.
Right. And Leonard, it's important that you know what you believe, but it's also important that you know what you don't believe, because these people, they're not coming like a kindergartner. They have
Right.
studied, and they're coming, man, they coming with everything they got. And so
Right.
praise be to the Lord of hosts that we got our truth now, where we
Right.
can say, that stuff got to fall to the ground, because it is, and then they want to make it a big deal by saying, do you believe science or do you believe God?
Right.
Well, it's a
Right.
no-brainer.
Right.
If what you're saying about God is the truth, then we go with God. But if you lying
Right.
on God, we can't go with it.
Right. Exactly. So
Thank you.
like I said before, the further we go into this, you think it's interesting now. The further we go into it, and with the information that you done received, you're gonna see what's going on. So we're gonna pick it back up.
God helped us or gave us to understand the origin of race. And why is it important to know the origin of white people? This is the most important conversation we've had all year. Every human being needs to come to terms with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught about white people. Black people, that is your continual, not mistake at this point, continual error. This is why, yet again, we are boycotted because of another example of police brutality. Another black man shot in front of his children. We collect hashtags and we keep coming to this point, and we will continue coming to this point because we keep making up fundamental errors, Mr. Janita. And the error we keep making is thinking that what we're dealing with, when dealing with white people, when dealing with the government of the United States, we're dealing with the police, we keep thinking we are dealing with fellow human beings that we can appeal to their sense of compassion. We can appeal to their sense of reason when it comes to Black life mattering. The very cry Black life matters that we launch at white people, the effort to convince white people that Black life matters, that screams the problem, which is we keep thinking white people are humans like us, that they have a human sensibility that we can appeal to get justice in this country. And every time we appeal to their humanity, we are met with nothing but bestiality. And Black people can't make sense of it, but we keep doing the same dumb stuff. And
Right. So I want to deal with that right there because, like I was saying before, I keep. A lot of people may not fully got it already, or it ain't really sunk in, and that's the reason I say let it ferment or whatever. But I keep reiterating over and over again that Ham, Shem, and Japhet is not brothers, like he's saying right here. So what you have to understand is how are we been deceived up until this point? Because of the person that brought us over here, beat the hell out of us, beat our fathers and all that. We looking up to them and we thinking that it's some kind of way. We're not looking at their behavior and what they're doing. We steady trying to mold ourselves into them and get approval from them when, like he's saying right here, they already showed you that they're not from the same origins. They're not cut from the same cloth that you cut from. And so all this stuff that you done got since you've been over here, they done gave it to you. They don't have no intention on you getting the truth or nothing. They want to keep you in a certain place, so they done fed you with all this bogus information that you got to challenge. Once you get to this point where you're at right now, you have to challenge everything that you have that's been given to you because it's got you in a place where you don't supposed to be at. And so, like I was saying before, the first thing you have to understand that all these people, all these men ain't none of Noah's sons. You got to know that. You got to know that Japhet ain't none of Noah's son. And that Ham ain't none of his son. And so I want to read something right here before I pick it back up. Because the title of this what we listening to is The Making of the White Man. And they saying that this God is being Yacub, which we know is tied to Jacob. Because he's gonna say that later. But he's saying that's Jacob. But we looking right here, I'm in Genesis chapter 4, and I'm at verse 10. And this is when Cain got cursed. It says, and he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother crieth unto me from the ground. Now, keep in mind, part of this is science or fiction too. So these Nation of Islam is more in tune with science, for getting their facts. So we're dealing with science right here. He says, and he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother crieth unto thee from the ground, and now thou art cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother blood from thy hands. And when thou tillest the ground, all this science, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee a strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, notice it's a supreme being here that he's dealing with. And it says, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord, this being, set a mark upon Cain, lest anyone findeth him shall kill him. And so we come to find out through science what melanin is. And right here we know that this being, the Lord of hosts, this angel, took the melanin from Cain. He was originally a man of color. He took the melanin from Cain and left Cain white. This the origins of the white man, right here, and nobody seems to know. So I wanted to inject that in there right here because, like I say, these stories in Christianity, in Islam, all these stories, they go back to their origins years from the Tanakh. They want you to think that the Israelite he was concocted somewhere in the desert, and that he digging all this information from other earlier civilizations, but that's not the case. These Israelites dealing with a kingdom that's in heaven. And it's got angels up there, and these angels are highly intelligent beings, like this so-called Yacub is. And they coming back and forth down here dealing with this particular race of men that came from Adam. Okay. Any comment before I move forward? Okay, well that's a whole nother story too that you have to factor in when you understand when you start talking about the Caucasus Mountains and people walking on all four and all that. That's tied to when you understand that in Genesis chapter 6, fallen angels came down and slept with humans, and like I said, you're dealing with science, angelic beings, and their DNA is different than human beings. That's why the Most High don't want them. They were forbidden to intermingle with humans, just like Israel was forbidden to intermingle with any other races. It's side effects only. Same way with pills today. You take a pill to help you do one thing, but the pill got side effects because the pill, the creator didn't create the pill. It's another human being that created it, and it's got defects in it. So the same thing with these people that was in these caves. They came from, their origins are from angels sleeping with humans, and they got defects. And we're looking at it every day all over the place, but we are understanding what it is. And we as a people, when we came here, when we was in Harlem and in Chicago, when we was thriving over in America, we were separated from them. We didn't see no Down syndrome and all these defects that we have today. It's after we started intermingling with them, we picked up those characteristics that came from them when they intermingled with the giants. So Abraham and Jacob don't have nothing to do with the Caucasus Mountains. Any more questions? Okay, we're gonna move forward.
Invest in our hopes in police reform. Invest in our hopes in Biden versus Trump, where if we understand the nature of these people, we would understand that Biden is in no way fundamentally different than Trump, as Hillary was in no way fundamentally different from Trump. You got to understand the nature of white people in order to properly deal with white people, and the Negro is incapable of properly dealing with white people. And how do you understand the nature of white people? The most honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the circumstances under which a thing was created determines the nature of that thing. So in order to know the nature of white people, we have to understand the circumstances in which white people were brought into existence. And unless and until none of black folks' problems in this country will ever be solved until we come to a realization of who we are and who white people are. Once we know that, then we will approach them differently. We will strategize getting justice in this country very differently once we have a proper knowledge of who they are. So this is not just of religious importance. Black people, you need to know who and what the hell you're dealing with when it comes to these people.
Right, that's
as
correct.
we go into November, as we are investing again more faith in Biden. Biden is as much of a devil as Trump. But in order to be able to perceive things properly, we have to understand what we're looking at. We have to understand what we're doing. That's why fleshing this out and coming to terms with Yacub and his maid is really a matter of life and death for Black people at this point.
So I'm understanding this is a highly important discussion, and in that sense, it's going to require a lot of understanding. With that being said, then, I want to also recognize that there are a lot of people who are on our viewers. Hey, viewers, if you haven't already, please share this discussion and let people know we're going there today. For those of our viewers who are new and know nothing about this, I think it would make the most sense to lay out some foundational information of the story of Yacub and who he was. That way, people are able to access this conversation on even grounds.
Very, very important. Very important. The story of Yacub and really the story of the white man, the story of race on this planet. The Black man and woman don't constitute a race. So when you say the Black race, that's inaccurate. A race is that which has a beginning and has an end. Race has a starting point and has a finish line. The Black man and woman is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Race came on this planet 6,000 years ago. There are races on this planet. The blue, the yellow, the white. Those are races. Before their emergence 6,000 years ago, there was no race. So what we're talking about is the origin of race, the origin of race. Even beyond Yacub, Yacub's value is what he produced. And that's what the most important part of this conversation is, not the man and his big head. What's important is what he unleashed on the planet and why he did it. Why he did it is more important than what he did. The story of Yacub and the origin of race on this planet, it actually begins 15,106 years ago. Now, I will ask our viewers, we have a lot of viewers, I see.
We do.
I am, and we are asking you to be patient with this discussion. This, for some of you, won't be easy. We're going to have to take our time with this discussion because, again, this is the most mocked aspect of the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I personally have every intent on ending that tonight. have every intention, Sister Janita, of ending tonight. So we're going to walk throughout and saying to us that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about Yacub and the making of white people, that those of you who mocked it, the laugh is on you. Those of you who disbelieved it, those of you who dismissed it and rejected it, the laugh is on you. We can, and I intend today to demonstrate during the course of this conversation that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught about the origin of race in this world is empirically sound, is scientifically demonstrable. And so in order to do that, we're going to talk a lot of science. And so right now, with all of these large numbers that we have viewed, I'm saying right now, if you have a low tolerance for scientific discussion, go do something else. Go do something else right now. If you are impatient with the process of learning, and I told you before, I'm the last one you want to check out. And today's conversation isn't going to be an exception to that. It's going to highlight that point, because I hope to walk us through the evidence that confirms that the seemingly most fantastic aspect of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and arguably the most offensive aspect of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, certainly if you're white, that aspect of the teaching is fully verifiable, that is the only accounting of the origin of white people that makes sense of all of the evidence, despite B.J. Vlad's teacher, Bill Nye, the science guy.
So my question is that the only verifiable situation to explain the white man? Okay.
You said that the only description to describe him?
Well, he said that the scenario with the big head scientist, Yacub, creating the white man is the only verifiable situation, that a claim that can be justified to say that who were the origins of the white man. So I'm asking, is there another verifiable, an undeniable situation that explains who the white man is?
Well, you can tell because he don't got melanin.
Right, but I'm saying the origins of it. Is there another situation that we know of where the white man came from, his origin?
The garden.
I just read it in Genesis.
Genesis 6.
Right. When he turned Cain, he took the melanin from Cain. And we see that all through the scriptures, he's turning people white. Cain was cursed. Canaan was cursed and turned white. And Gehazi, all through the scriptures, this so-called God of the Old Testament, the God of the Hebrews, he turning people white all through his Bible. But he just said that there's no other verifiable source to justify the fact that where the white man came from. But it is another source. And I just read it in Genesis chapter 3 when he cursed Cain. Yeah. Let me pick it back up.
So be patient with us. Or if you know your patience no hope, go ahead and find something less top heavy to engage in because this will be a very top heavy discussion. But if you stick around with us, I can almost guarantee you will see white people for who they are. And by doing so, you and I can handle them properly. And what does that look like, Sister Janita? What does handling white people look like?
I have no idea.
This knowledge would help us do that. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us the answer to that. What does handling white people properly look like? He said that once you know white people, they are like a string wrapped around your feet. You won't know it's there unless you look at it. You won't know white people are there unless you turn to look at them. Once you know them for who and what they are, they cease being the problem in your my life that they have been. Knowledge of them gives us power to determine our own destiny despite them. That's what properly handling white people as a consequence of properly perceiving white people is about. So what are we talking about? I said that the story of Yacub and banking of the white man didn't begin with Yacub's birth, individual birth, 6,600 years ago, 20 miles outside of the holy city, Mecca in Arabia. This story actually begins 15,106 years ago. Because it was at that time, Sister Janita, that the government, the Islamic government, which we call the 24 scientists or the 12 scientists, the Council of the Gods. This has been the government of the world for 66 trillion years, a circle of gods, 12 black men who are gods that constitute a governing body. 15,106 years ago, they met at the holy city of Mecca. They met and they, as was and is their duty, they wrote the prophetic history. They convened over what they were able to see coming in the future, because fallen man writes history after it happens. Gods write history before it happens. So 15,100 years ago, the gods convened to write history that will unfold on the earth in the future, based on what they were able to see coming. And what they saw coming 15,000 years ago, Sister Janita, what these gods saw was that an element of dissatisfaction will develop on the earth, in Arabia in particular, that approximately 30% of the population in Arabia will become highly dissatisfied. And the gods 50,000 years ago saw that out of that dissatisfaction, a man would be born. And that man would be born to deliver the satisfied that which they are asking.
Okay. Did anybody picking up on anything on that part of the delivery? Anybody picking anything up on that? Sound like to me he's describing angels. He's saying gods, but we know that these angels. And not only that, we know from Daniel chapter, let me go there right quick, because I make this plain. So we know from Daniel chapter, we get Daniel right quick. And like I said before, they done flipped the script and saying that the Israelites getting this information from a previous culture, but they getting the information from what these angels doing with the Israelites, and then from the Tanakh. So we go to I'm in Daniel chapter 10, verse 9, and it says, then came, verse 18, then there came again and touched me one like appearance of a man, and he strengthened me. So let's go all the way in on it, because they're dealing with science. So these angels, they look like men. We created in their image. We ain't just appear out of nowhere with the image that we got. We, our creators, the creator that created us has an image of a man, and we created in his image. So this angel comes in 18 and says, then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me and said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee, be strong, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and he said, let my Lord, and I said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou not, wherefore have I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia, and when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Greece shall come. Now, this is my point right here, 21. But I will show thee, see that? What he just keeps saying, that these men talk about stuff that already happened, but these gods, he calling them gods, but they elves. And they telling him, they can tell them what's going on because of they superior beings. But not only that, we see in 21, but I will show thee that which is noted in the scriptures of truth. So we see which book everybody getting everything from. This the scripture of truth, which is in heaven. And the Tanakh is based off of that, because these angels was giving it to our forefathers and they was writing it down. So the Tanakh is tied to the scripture of truth. So now we see where the orders of all this information coming from. So it says, I would notice to show you the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince. Ain't nobody else in the whole universe except the angel that came to Gabriel. The angel that came to Daniel was Gabriel. And he's conveying to Gabriel, there's nobody else that's looking on this book that's able to tell you things before they happen, but him, Gabriel, and Michael. Ain't nobody else. Ain't no big head scientist. Ain't no Yacub. There ain't no 12 counselors, none of that. We see right here, this book of scripture of truth was there before the beginning. And these angels that are looking on it are able to tell you things before they happen. So when you understand that, you understand exactly what he's saying right here. But he's got them, just like they did with the New Testament, he pulling this from here, but it ain't adding up. Because now we got the proper knowledge. It ain't working. Comments? Okay, we're gonna keep moving.
And so they put in their books and sealed them that in the future, when this level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction arises in Arabia, a man will be born there in Arabia to answer that dissatisfaction. And one of the reasons for the dissatisfaction, we would leave that too late.
Yeah, it's a man. It's a man who's expected to be born in the New Testament. It's a man expected to be born right here. Remember that.
Why there was such dissatisfaction at the time. But the gods saw, and this is very important to understand, Yacub. Yacub was born to carry out the will of the gods. Because when the gods convened 15,000 years ago and saw that based on a divine mathematical formula, that certain trends will lead to certain other trends that will lead to people being born that would do things that would trigger domino effects. When they saw that, they could have vetoed that vote. When they saw that 30% dissatisfaction was going to develop, from which a man will be born, they could have vetoed that, set in motion other triggers to make history develop differently, but they decided to seal that deal. And once it was done, once the God said be, it was determined that when that man is born, he's born with a predetermined idea. That means when he comes out of his mother's womb, he doesn't know that he's a child of destiny. As he goes through his life, destiny pulls him in directions to do that which he was born to do. But the idea was not his. The idea was determined for him when he was born. So it should never be said that Yacub was an evil man. He was not. He was a God. He was a righteous God, even though he made a devil and an enemy for the black man. He did so only because he was obeying the prophecy that the gods, Allah, had determined 15,000 years before he was born. So, Yacub is born. This black baby is born 20 miles outside the holy city of Mecca. He's born a child prodigy. At 4 years old, he started school. At 6 years old, he had his epiphany. The predetermined idea, the determination for his life that was made 15,000 years ago. At 6 years old, he had that epiphany. He knew what he was born to do. Shortly after he had that epiphany, he went before the gods, the council of the gods, because for 60 trillion years, for an infinity of time, this was the government of the black world, this council of scientists, gods, 12 of which are the ruling gods. After Yacub's epiphany, he went before the council of the gods and he told them his destiny to create a people, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that what sparked young Yacub's epiphany was he was one day playing with 2 pieces of steel. He was born with a scientific inclination. And while a youngster is playing with 2 pieces of steel, and on this day he happened to encounter magnetism and how, unlike a trap, And at that point, just by playing with these two pieces of steel, the determination for his life came to his head. And he said on that day to himself that he's going to make a people unlike his people, because he's born from the dissatisfied element of Arabia. And dissatisfied element, they're dissatisfied with the other people of Arabia. They're not dissatisfied with mountains or trees or inanimate objects. They were dissatisfied with the king of Arabia, dissatisfied with the institutions of Arabia. And so he was born from that dissatisfaction. So at 6, the epiphany he had after playing with, after witnessing the law of unlike attract, he determined, or what was determined 15,000 years ago, came to his head. I'm going to make a people unlike my people, who I, so many others, are satisfied with. And by making this people who are unlike, I'm going to make them to rule over my people. And so sometime after that, Yacub came before the council of the gods. And the gods questioned Yacub about his idea. Yacub told them what he was going to do. Now, one of the gods of the council happened to have been Yacub's uncle. It seems like an insignificant detail, but it's not. One of the gods of the assembly, before whom Yacub went, was his uncle. And his uncle starts questioning his nephew about his plan, his determined idea. And his uncle says to Mr. Yacub, when Yacub says that he's going to make a people, a new people on this earth, the uncle says to his nephew, what will you make except that which will create mischief and cause the shedding of blood? Yacub says to his uncle, I know what you know not. This, we find it in the Holy Quran, is very important. And the Quran records this conversation with young Yacub and his uncle in the setting of the council of the gods. In the Quran, it has Allah saying to the angels, I'm going to place a ruler in the earth. And the angels interrogating that declaration by God, the angels saying to God, what will you put except that which will create mischief, cause the shedding of blood? And the Quran says, Allah said to the angels, surely I know what you know not. What's important is that Quranic discussion between Allah and the angels is actually a recounting of that day the young Yacub went before the council of gods and they questioned him about his plan to make a people that will rule. His uncle told his uncle that I'm going to make a people that will rule himself.
What part of the Quran is that in? Because I know earlier on one of the clips, Ronald Reagan, I believe that was his name, said that this was a story built in or designed in 1960, and now you're saying actually we can tie this to the Quran.
I'm saying much more than that.
Anybody got any comments on what they heard so far? Okay.
I was gonna say that, yeah, they're definitely like alluding to like Yacub or whatever being over those gods or having more say so kind of. And then that's kind of how it is in the New Testament. I feel like that's a connection.
Right. And also, if it's a divine council that he going to, we know that's angels, elves. So how he got an uncle? If he got an uncle, that means he came down and slept with women. Right?
Right. Right.
So that's in you, whatever, if this is the case, this divine council, fallen angels. Huh?
Right.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
Shalom, shalom. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, how does this guy have an uncle with a divine counsel? But I didn't even, I didn't think about got to be a fallen, it's got to be the product of a fallen angel. But that makes sense.
Right. And then you also go, this is what I'm saying about that you have to understand that they didn't left out so much stuff, and so they bring it in. These are the things that's making Islam what it is, because you took this information from over here and put it over there to give you some kind of meat. So, what counsel? Well, go back to Genesis. When he said, "Let us go down," and he had these 70 angels, and they came down. They go to council, but they took all that information out from us because Moses ain't talking to divine council. If how Yacub talking to a divine council, Jacob ain't talking to divine council.
Right.
See, so where's it coming from? You took that information out. Now you sticking it over here. But like I said, what is divine council at? It's with those 70 angels.
Right. And Leonard, let's not overlook the guy that's sharing this. Listen to his zeal.
Right. Exactly. Right, but then like I say, what you have to understand is that they have no idea, no clue about what we didn't gather over here.
Exactly.
So when you got to look at that and put it in perspective, yeah, you're gonna have some zeal because you think you got the information and it's solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And you think the people that are listening to you are still dumbed down in status quo.
Right, but it ain't the case because, like I said, you got to stop and think about that. You're going from, and this ain't to try to throw this conversation off or throw off what's being said, but you got to think about we talk about divine counsel. That's he said 6,600,000 years they've been in existence and dealing with things. Now all of a sudden, he go this man that was born of a woman in front of this council, and also he got an uncle there. Come on, man.
I
think
started
about
laughing.
That. Yeah, think about that. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We're gonna pick it up.
Saying this regarding your particular question. I'm saying that the history of Yacub and the making of the devil, despite Ronald Reagan's bogus claim that this is some newfangled doctrine, on the contrary, the history of Yacub and making of white man is found to various degrees of detail in the sacred traditions all across the earth. In Yacub and the artificial creation of white people is found in the records of ancient Egypt. It's found in the records of ancient Sumer. It's found in the records of ancient Arabia. It's found in the records of ancient India. There is nothing new about the artificial and deliberate creation of white people by a group of scientific guys. There is nothing new about that. Right. So we would demonstrate that. And so it is in the Holy Quran, in the second surah, 30th verse, where that discussion between Allah and the angels take place, and we know that that's a Quranic recounting of the session between young Yacub and the council of the gods. So after Yacub leaves, he grows up, he matriculates through the educational system. He spends his time in laboratories. He's examining the DNA of his people in laboratories in Arabia. And then at 18, he had exhausted the educational system of Arabia, and he makes a transition in life. He goes from being a scientist to being an activist. So he leaves the lab, he goes out in the street. He starts teaching among the dissatisfied element. He becomes a radical activist, a rebel, if you will. He's teaching among the dissatisfied elements in Arabia and attracting a following. And at some point, this dissatisfaction was going on a long time, long before Yacub was born. But it was ignored when Yacub was born. And he transitions from a scientist in a lab to a activist leader on the streets of Arabia. And he starts attracting elements from the dissatisfied, and his numbers grow. The king of Arabia and the authorities take note of it. Now they can no longer ignore the dissatisfaction because they found a lead. They arrest Yacub and many of his followers. But understand, Yacub wasn't born with that name, Yacub. We really don't know what his individual name was, what name he was born with, but Yacub was put in the prophecy when the gods met 15,000 years ago and saw that one will be born from among that dissatisfied population. They gave him a name, Yacub, because Yacub means supplanter. That really was a description of the work that this man will do, because this man will make a people that will supplant his people. So when this young prodigy came through his mother's womb, they did not bestow upon him the name Yacub. We really don't know what name he had, but his prophetic name was Yacub. So when he was in jail, the king, who has access to the prophetic history books, he went to this rebel leader's cell. But first, the authorities tell him, we have so-and-so in the cell. They gave his birth name. It's not recorded for us. We don't know what it is. But the king says that's not his name. Because based on his work, he knew who he was dealing with. So when the king went to the cell, this man is registered under another name. The king went to his cell. He said, I know you are Mr. Yacub. And he said, yes, that is I, the supplanter. Because the king, knowing that this was God's will, knowing that this man was not a rogue rabble rouser, as it was initially thought, a rebel leader, but was in fact born with to carry out the determination that the gods had made. Right. So the king had to negotiate with Mr. Yacub. And that negotiation resulted in Mr. Yacub and his followers being allowed to carry out their agenda, but they couldn't carry it out in the rest. They were given supplies to go across the water to an island in isolation. And Yacub, then, as the Jew lad says, he didn't get that from Bill Nye, the science guy. 59,999 of Yacub's followers, believers in him, crossed the waters, went over into this isolated island in the Aegean Sea.
Like Noah's Ark?
What about Noah's Ark?
No, I'm asking it. Is that connected now?
Yep, but later.
Oh, okay. Just making connections.
So he sets up his operation in Arabia, in Patmos or Pelon, an island in the Aegean Sea. He sets up his operation on how to.
See, he said Patmos. That's Paul was on Patmos.
Create a new people. But what do you mean, Brother Dr. Wesley, create a new people? When Yacub was studying the DNA in the genome of black people, he discovered that there were two people that exist within the black man. He said two people. And the two people were unalike. These two people exist within the genome of the black man, he discovered. What he called or what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called a black germ and a brown germ. These two germs could produce two different people. Yacub, seeing that in the laboratory, in the isolated island, he instituted a process intended to segregate or isolate that second person, that brown germ, isolated from the black germ and grab it out. He established a system of policies and procedures. He established laborers, ministers, doctors, nurses, and cremators. These were his laborers to execute the plan, and the plan was a plan of eugenics, a plan of selective mating, breeding, a process that will last 600 years, during which the races would be born on the planet. So that, in general, by races, I mean the first 200 years of that process produced the brown race. We call them the Japanese. The second 200 years produced from the brown race the yellow race, the Chinese. This ever diminishing pigmentation, but more than just pigmentation, the changes that resulted in that process are much more profound than color. And then the last stage, next 200 years, from brown Japanese to, well, from black Arabian to brown Japanese, from brown Japanese to yellow Chinese, from yellow Chinese to white Caucasian. That was the man that Yacub made. So, of course, there's so much more to it, but that's the first part of the story of Yacub, the origin of white people, the origin of race.
Wow. Wow. All right, Powerful Creators, if you haven't already, please share, share, share. Today we are in Dr. Wesley's school, and the words of the day are nuance and patience. So there's going to be a lot of nuance to this discussion, and as Dr. Wesley has said before, please be patient with us, because that was just, as he said, the first part of the history that was necessary to be laid out for all of those that did not know the story. I know some of you are like, well, we already know this story. We want you to hurry up and go into the science and evidence. But remember, this conversation is no.
Because those who would say that, you are the ones I would say you need to go ahead and check out. Go ahead and check out. If you are impatient with this process of learning, you're just going to turn into a troll. And a troll is so undignified. You don't want to be that, and I don't want to trigger that in you. So if you don't have patience with the process of learning, this is the absolute last place you want to be on this day. Because we are going to be meticulous. We're going to take a time. This is going to be a top-heavy discussion. But at the end of it, God damn it, no more mocking will be made of this aspect of the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And God willing, you, the next white man you see when you leave house, assuming he or she is not in your house, the next white man you see, you will look them in the face and know exactly what you're looking at.
Okay, we got about 20 more minutes, so anybody have any comments on what they heard so far, and then we're gonna listen to the last 20 minutes for the night.
Okay. I can't wait to hear the rest.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else got any comments? We're gonna play the last 20 minutes. Don't let the cat hold your tongue. Okay. I'm gonna play this last 20 minutes for the night. We're gonna divide the rest of it up into two more sections.
Wow. So where do we go from here then?
I would like to do this. So that was the basis of the first part of the revelation from God to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in terms of the origin of white people. I would like to, if I may, show some visuals.
Okay. Make sure we're sharing this conversation. This is a free education right now.
So I would like to Brother Warren, can you minimize that a bit as I introduce this?
Yeah. Yeah, so this part right here, like I was saying before, when we get off the line tonight, you might want to get ahead of everything and watch the rest of this, because of what you was getting ready to see now. You're only gonna hear it, but he got visuals on the screen, and it's the exact same 4 men that I've been talking to you about, that I showed you on videos on Uncomfortable Conversation with a non-Messianic Israelite. But he's gonna come in and show you from his perspective and what some white archaeologists and theologians said about these same 4 men. So when you get the opportunity, go back and watch it on your screen, because you'll be able to see these videos, see these visual images.
So the gentleman in the upper left corner is Jean-Francois Champollion. Champollion is the one who deciphered or credited with being the first European to decipher hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt, the Medinet Turk, in 1824. After he, through breaking the code of the so-called Rosetta Stone, Jean-Francois Champollion in 1829, after decoding the Rosetta Stone, traveled to Egypt and studied, equipped with the language now, studied the inscriptions on the walls, copied them, drew them, but then he wrote a letter from Egypt to his brother. His brother, Jacques Champollion, who would later go on to be an icon of Western Egyptology. John wrote a letter to his brother because John made what according to reports, was a disconcerting revelation while in Egypt studying the inscriptions. I'm going to read portions of this letter written in 1829, and it's going to lay the base for walking through the demonstrate the correctness of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. John said this in his letter to his brother from Egypt. He said, right in the valley of the planet of Moloch, or the gate of the kings, in the valley of the kings, the famous valley of the kings in ancient Egypt. Champollion says, right in the valley of Bedan el Moloch, we admire, like all previous visitors, the astonishing freshness of the paintings and the fine sculptures on several tombs. I had a copy made of the peoples represented on the bas reliefs. At first, I had thought from the copies of these bas reliefs published in England, before he encountered them for himself, having traveled to Egypt with knowledge of the language. At first, I had thought from the copies of these bas reliefs published in England that these peoples of different races, led by the god Horus, holding his shepherd's staff, were indeed nations subject to the rule of the pharaohs. A study of the legends informed me that this tableau has a more general meaning. It portrays the third hour of the day, when the sun is beginning to turn on its burning rage, warming all the inhabited countries of our hemisphere. According to the legend itself, the Egyptians wished to represent the inhabitants of Egypt and those of foreign lands. Thus, we have before our eyes the image of the various races of man known to the Egyptians. So the Egyptians plastered on their walls and knowledge of the races of man. Champollion, when he went to Egypt, encountered the Egyptians' representation and knowledge of the races of man as they knew. So he joined in his letter to his brother. And we learn at the same time that the great geographical or ethnographic divisions established during the early epoch. He says in these representations are men led by the God Horus, the shepherd of the peoples, belonging to 4 distinct families. The human races, as the Egyptians pictured them, were divided into 4 distinct families. Champollion says, quote, the first, the one closest to the god, has dark red color, a well-proportioned body, a kind face, nose slightly alkaline, thin and narrow, long braided hair, and is dressed in white. The legends designate this species as Rectum negrum, the race of men par excellence, i.e. the Egyptians. There can be no uncertainty. That's the first one to the left. Okay. He says, there can be no uncertainty about the racial identity of the man who comes next. He belongs to the black race, designated under the general term Nahasi. The third presents a very different aspect. His skin color borders on yellow or tan. He has a strongly alkaline nose, thick black pointed beard, and wears a short garment of various colors. These people, he says, are called by the Egyptians Namu. Finally, the last fellow to the extreme right. Finally, Champollion says, the last one is what we call flesh color, a white skin of the most delicate shade, a nose straight or slightly arched, 2 eyes, blonde or reddish beard, tall stature, and very slender, clad in a hairy outfit. A veritable savage. That's not Brother Wesley's words. That's Champollion's words. Listen. A veritable savage tattooed on various parts of his body. He is called Tamahu. Because I hastened to see the tableau corresponding to this one and the other royal tombs, and as a matter of fact, I found it in several. The variations I observed fully convinced me that the Egyptians had tried to represent here the inhabitants of the 4 corners of the earth, according to the Egyptian system, namely, 1, the inhabitants of Egypt, which by itself form 1 part of the world, 2, the inhabitants of Africa proper, blacks, 3 Asians, and finally, and he says this, and finally, and I'm ashamed to say so, since our race is the last and the most savage in the series, Europeans, who in those remote epochs, finally or frankly, did not cut to find and figure the word. He says we find that Egyptian and Africans represented in the same way, which could not be otherwise. He said, but the Namu, the Asians, and the Tamahu, the Europeans, present significant and curious variants. He says this in closing. This is true of our good old ancestors, the Tamahu. Their attire is sometimes different. Their heads are more or less hairy and adorned with various ornaments. Their savage dress varies in form, but their white complexion, their eyes and beard all preserve the character of a race apart. Now I'm going to end that quote and do some elaboration.
Okay.
Here it is, the father of explication. One of the fathers of Western Egyptology. He sees the Egyptian representation of the races as they knew them. He sees them depicted on the wall, and this was a part of the Egyptian topographical and anthropological system. It acknowledged 4 races, Remet, or the Egyptians proper, and they always depicted themselves as brown, red, dark brown, red. And Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the so-called red man, who is a black man with initially a red hue, not the pale Indies, but the original Native American was a black man. He's described as a red man because there was a red hue to him, but he's an original man. And the ancient Egyptian depiction, self-depiction of themselves as dark red, has symbolic significance and ethnographic significance. They are from a particular family of black people. The first of the 4 races that the Egyptians acknowledged. The second race, the Nehesu, or Nehesi, the Nubians, the Africans. Each of these personified the race that was acknowledged. The Egyptian, the Remetic, personified that particular part of the black nation. The Nehesi or Nehesu, the so-called Negro or African, depicted, personified that division of the black nation. And then the Amu, the Asians, that Amu, according to the Egyptians, that third one, with their sallow or yellow skin, represented Asians and Middle Easterns. He personified that race of people. And then the fourth, the Tamahu, the flesh-colored, the white with blue eyes and blonde hair as depicted in some of these. He personified the white race, both northern white and also white Libyans, west of the Nile. These white Libyans called Tamahu, for those who are familiar with this history, these white Tamahu are distinguished from the black techno that preceded them. I'm not going to get into that whole Tamahu to Nehu debate, but suffice to say, these are the four races, distinct races that the ancient Egyptian system acknowledged. That when Chapolian encountered it, he was disturbed by the reality of his people. But what I want to emphasize right here is the name. It's white people, Sister Denise. This fourth race, from the black red to the black to the yellow to the white. The white, the fourth race, is called Tamahu. Now, below Jean-Francois Champollion, the white man under him, Gerald Mason, he writes and decodes the language Tamahu. According to Gerald Macy, he writes in Egyptian, Tamahu means people and created. Who is white like ivory. The Tamahu thus are the created white people. Despite the controversy surrounding Gerald Macy and despite some of the arguments against the various meanings and nuances of meanings for pronunciation of this word Tamahu, the fact that at least one of the meanings of Tamahu, as it is used as an ethnographic designation for this race of people acknowledged by the Egyptians acknowledged four races: black, red, black, yellow, and white. And the white were given a designation Tamahu, one meaning of which is created white people. We have here an early acknowledgement from the ancient Egyptians of what we're dealing with white people. They aren't a natural evolution in the ancient Egyptian cosmoanthropology. White people represented by the white Libyans to their west and by the whites to their north. These people didn't represent a natural human evolution, but they were Tamahu, created white people. They were created, according to the ancient Egyptians. This is long before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Who created white people? How were white people created? No, that's what I intended to do. Did you have any questions on that before we?
Okay, we're gonna stop right there for the night. Anybody got any comments or questions about what we just heard? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to listen to that again. All
Right.
that it's a lot of information, so I wanna go back and listen to this part of him explaining those four people again, and slow it down, stop it, and all that.
Right. Yeah, you gotta look at the visual too. It's the exact same image that I had.
Okay.
Right. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm just amazed of this story.
Right.
Elijah Muhammad was just I don't know what he was doing, but whatever he was explaining to Malcolm X and everybody else, and want to say Yacub was Jacob, and the whole 9 yards and wrestling with the angels. And I mean, once you really get into it and you start reading a whole lot about the story, you see that and you will read that. I don't understand how he pulls that and say that Yacub is Jacob. You know, like
Right. Right.
I don't know. I'm like Jeanette. I'm into this now, and I want to read more and watch more because Elijah Muhammad was just um, making up his own story,
Right.
and and even trying to say in Genesis, 30 that was Yacub. I'm like, what? But
Right. Exactly.
right. It's very interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
all I gotta say is the more you read, the more you know. And he was saying that we have knowledge once we learn who the white people are, and
Right.
and which is true. But we also have power when we know who we are.
Come on now.
Exactly.
So
Right.
it's not just the white people. Once we know who we are, we
Yes.
have power. And
Exactly.
if we all was foolish enough to follow up behind Elijah Muhammad, we would be fools. But we know better than that. So I'm just saying this story is just so amazing to me, and I'm reading and reading, and I'm like, wow. But
Mm-hmm.
very great class, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate that. Zaire, you got something to say? You gotta unmute your mic.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. It, I want to listen to it over again too, so I can get the gist of
Right. Right.
what he. Yeah, like I said, I've heard the story before, but it was so long ago, and I obviously dismissed it from thought. So, but yeah. So
Right. Right.
so they're glad to have the link to pass on, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
is it?
I'm gonna get Carl and sort of send a link out. But the thing about it is, like I was saying before, or the reason why I be dealing with these kind of videos is so you can't be caught off guard. Because somebody what people try to do, they have no intentions on trying to elevate you or enlighten you, but they want to try to make you look crazy by bringing up something that you don't know nothing about. So
Right.
that's why I'm bringing up all this type of stuff like the Illuminati and this, because when you get in conversation with people, you're gonna be caught off guard because now you heard about this, and it's on you whether you want to dig into it deeper and get a better understanding of it, whether you be able to talk about it or defend yourself if you come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna get her to put that out after I get off the phone, after we get off the line.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Any more comments? Questions? Okay. With that being said, we're gonna pick up on yeah. So with that being said, we're gonna pick up on the Sabbath class with the part 2, because we got Q&A tomorrow night. So we're gonna pick up with that. We got like 4 more hours. I'm just gonna divide it up into 2 hours apiece for Sabbath, morning class and evening class, so we can have it up in our on our channel. And so with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom.